Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the AMT Power Final Results Investor Presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just please simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via your Investor Meet company dashboard and will notify you when they're ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we would like to submit to the following poll, and if you would give that your kind attention, we'd be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand over to Kevin Brundish, CEO of AMT Power. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome everyone to our presentation this morning. Adam and I will be running through the following slides. We will firstly give some highlights on the year that ended in June the 30th. And then for those of you that are new to our business, I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to who AMTE Power are and what we do. And then I'm going to focus a little bit more detail on the pathway to sort of production, volume production. And then Adam will come in and talk a little bit about the financial performance, and then we'll summarize everything at the end. So just on to our 4-year highlights. We made strong progress in all of our core areas, and really our business has got three key focuses. One is to bring our products to production. The second is to scale that production beyond what we already have to meet the market requirements. And of course, the third is to get the engagements that give us the supplier of contracts. So delighted that we made strong progress in all three of those. We have 3 highly differentiated cells which make good progress towards gigafactory production rates. We have great support from the government in bringing those products to market and strong brands behind those. We've engaged across different regions and with central government on our gigafactory, and we're seeing strong growth in our commercial supply engagements as we move forward. And of course, we had a successful IPO at the beginning of this calendar year, and our results that Adam will go through in more detail are in line with market expectations. So for those of you who are new to our business, I'm just going to give a very quick introduction to AMTE Power. So AMTE Power is founded in 2013, and we've generated a strong portfolio of IP, which we've embedded into 3 highly differentiated products that are focused on specialist but nonetheless substantial markets. We'll talk more about those. We've been developing the products hand in hand with commercial partners, end users, and our supply chain. And we have a manufacturing facility already, which gives us the ability to manufacture the products up to a certain scale. Beyond that, we've got access to a national facility in the UK, which can help us to scale up to sort of gigafactory production rates. And we have been developing and designing our own gigafactory, which we will talk more about as well. That's the business. The products in a bit more detail, we have 3 differentiated ones and 2 more conventional products. The 3 differentiated ones are the ultra high power, the ultra safe, and the ultra prime. The high power cell is aimed at putting as much power into a smaller volume as possible, and you can see the markets that that's focused on. The ultra safe is a safe home storage or energy storage solution that could also be deployed in aerospace and automotive. And then the ultra prime has been developed for the oil and gas markets. So 5 products that we've been working on bringing to market as we move forward. So that's just a very brief introduction to AMTE. I'm really now going to talk a little bit more detail about the progress we made through the year. So moving on to those products, the ultra energy and ultra high power products are primarily aimed at automotive and aerospace, and we have moved those into That national facility I talked about, the UK BIC, and we are testing there, bringing the production rates up to what I've called gigapace, which is really gigafactory production rates. So we've made strong progress there, and that's a big step. The market opportunity for those products is large. In the year we announced that we had a program of support from the government, and alongside it we had Arrival and we had BMW as steering committee partners. We've subsequent to that announced that we have another program where BMW and BP are full partners on that program, and so we've made very strong progress at bringing the products to market, and still on track for those to enter or be released later this calendar year. Ultra Prime continues to be developed. It's met all of its performance metrics, and we are now transferring that up to Thurso, where we are looking to produce that in volumes of up to around about 1 million sales a year, primarily for the oil and gas market. Our Ultra Safe cell also progresses well. We're not expecting to release that until next calendar year. We have a strong working relationship with Faradion, who we've licensed the technology from, and we're meeting our performance gateway metrics as we move forward. And Ultra Storage is being developed to be exploited by the joint venture we've set up, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, out in Australia. So it's been developed along the timelines that match the growth in production there. So all in all, we're seeing good, strong progress in our products coming to market. Clearly, what's important is that we have the manufacturing capacity to meet market expectations, market demand. I've already mentioned that we've stepped into the UK BIC. The ultra high power and ultra energy cells are in there as we speak, and we're moving the Ultra Prime cell to Thurso to expand production. So good, strong progress. Of course, the UK BIC is capable of running at gigafactory production rates. So proving out the cells there is a very strong step, and then enables us to build out production capacity based on those results. So we've also been engaging with regional authorities as part of our site selection for our gigafactory, which we initially designed to be around about 2 gigawatt hours, but we now have plans that take it up to 10 gigawatt hours. We've seen the interest in the cells we're taking forward grow, so the market opportunity is there for that sort of scale. Beyond the regional agencies that we've been talking to, we've also been in dialogue with the central government funding in the Automotive Transformation Fund, and we've put our initial submission to them in support of the growth of that gigafactory. On Monday, so yesterday, we announced that we'd formed the joint venture in Australia with Infranomics. Infranomics is a great partner to have. They will be responsible for the fundraising, the supply chain, and the client engagement out in Australia, and we provide the cell design and obviously the design of the factory and the manufacturing experience. So a strong partnership, and we're looking to build out a 1 to 2 gigawatt hour lithium-ion plant in Australia, in Western Australia, in what's known as Lithium Valley. Not only is this a buoyant market that we see for our energy storage products, but we also see this as an exciting opportunity to line up the supply chain. The raw materials that are in Western Australia are strong for this for our industry, so it's a strong link beyond just the opportunity, the market opportunity that we see in Australia. So client engagement is key, and we are seeing very strong growth. In year, we saw it grow around about 100% from 9 to 20 by the end of June. 2021. And these are product supply engagements. So we has historically had very strong engagements, 68 at the end of June. The majority of those were around the product development, natural for the status of our business as it's been historically. But as we're moving towards that product release, we're seeing a large uptake in engagements for the products, and we're moving more recently up to into the 40s towards 50 client engagements across the target markets. So I'm just going to hand over to Adam now, who's going to run you through the financial highlights.
Lovely, thank you, Kevin, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. With regards to the financial highlights, a couple of prime indicators here. Turnover is up 55%, which we're very pleased about. That has been driven primarily through an increase in grant income. We've been successful with winning and delivering various grant-funded projects, and that is illustrative of how our development program is still working well and looking to deliver the products, as Kevin alluded to earlier. In terms of performance, gross margin is up from just under 3% last period to 16% this period. We'd expect that to be similar going forward. We're expecting this year to have a new revenue stream come online that would be relating to prototype and product sales, and we would also expect that to improve the gross margins as well. But to date, we're pleased with performance we've got to. In terms of adjusted EBITDA, we are slightly better than was expected in the marketplace, which we're pleased about. We still expect that to remain as a negative value until the product and prototype sales start to kick in and become the dominant segment within the business. But again, that has come in, and it illustrates the investment in development work that we continue to carry out. I think one other point is we had a successful IPO, raised 12.9 million, which was back in March. That was gross proceeds. We still remain with 9.3 million at the end of the year, and that gives us a very strong platform to move ahead in the business. Just a very quick look at the balance sheet. I think the main point here is that we have significant assets under intangible assets, just over 20 million pounds on balance sheet, and that's representative of the investment work and the value in terms of the new products we're putting together and putting in the business. And those we expect that come next year, those will start to amortize. But at present, they become the dominant element in the sheet, along with the cash and cash equivalents. In terms of movement in cash, I think I've alluded to before. The primary driver here has been the fundraise, raising circa that's 12.3 million. That includes a couple of share option exercises, but also that is gross proceeds. Other than that, we have primarily been investing in the business, as I said before, and this breaks down the certain elements that we're looking at. I think operating activities, the first bar on the left, or the first grey bar on the left, that represents the sort of indicative of what we've been spending for the business itself. And with that, Kevin, I'll pass back to you.
So I'm just going to really finish up with our outlook. So our strong progress, we're going to continue to build on it. We've got 5 cells under development, 3 of those cells which are set for release in each of the next 3 years, and we're currently on track to deliver. We also have the 2 more conventional cells, one set for release this calendar year as well, and one for next calendar year that is set for the joint venture in Baden. So strong progress that we look to build on and continue to get to product release. We've also made a lot of progress on our manufacturing capacity, particularly expansion towards gigafactories, both here in the UK and in Australia. We're setting up the joint venture. We are one of our cells will be manufactured in our existing plant up in Thurso. That's for the oil and gas market, but the other 2, the automotive and aerospace products, we'll look to build a gigafactory behind the demand because the opportunity is very large in that space. And then the energy storage products, our initial production will probably be from Australia, a very buoyant market, but we are seeing quite a growth in opportunities in the UK and nearer Europe as well. So we'll also be looking to convert those client engagements. We've shown that we've been getting a steep curve on additional engagements as we move the business forward and as we move towards those product releases. And we will be looking in the year what we've now entered to start to look at converting those into supply agreements in both the energy storage markets and automotive. So with that, thank you for your time listening to the presentation, and we'll be opening for questions.
Kevin, Adam, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this morning. Can I please ask investors to continue submitting your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen? Just type in your message, and at the bottom you'll see the ability to press send. But just while the company take a few moments to review those investor questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, will be accessed by your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and we'll notify you when that's ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after the presentation's ended, we'll redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. Kevin, Adam, I haven't given you an awful long while between presenting and taking on the questions, but we've received a number of questions during today's meeting itself. I just wondered if we could start off with a couple of pre-submitted questions, the first one of which reads as follows. Do you have enough resource to manage the opportunity on Australia, and can you explain how it's beneficial to the UK opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So the answer is quite simply yes. The benefits of doing a joint venture are that the joint venture will take a lot of the heavy lifting. They will be in country in Australia, engaging with the client base. And ultimately what we're providing is the cell design under license and the ability to design and then construct the site, but the bulk of the work will be done by the joint venture itself, of which we're a beneficiary. So yes, we can certainly do that. What it does for us in the UK, it's sort of twofold. Firstly, of course, it brings one of our products to maturity and gets it out in the market. But what it also does is, as I mentioned, it's in a region where there are a lot of raw materials, which is key to scaling up production. So it will give us access to that type of engagement with the supply chain out there as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Next question reads as follows. Where in the UK are you looking at for the gigafactory, and what are the key factors driving your choice?
Yeah, again, so thank you. So in the UK, we're looking at both Scotland, we have a site in Scotland and northeast of England, and Wales. Those are the three areas that we've been looking at. We aren't due to select a particular site until next calendar year, but we have made substantial progress in the engagements and the design work that has to precede that site selection. And the things that we look at are, of course, one of the really important things is the energy that we will need access to, so the power supply. That being from a renewable source is really important to us. Having a very low carbon footprint production facility is key to the drive to net zero and the green revolution that we're seeing here in the UK, all about climate change. So that is a dominant feature of what we look at. But there are other features such as the resource support for the skills that we need to be successful, and access to logistics and supply chain. So all of those features come into play when we're selecting a site.
Thank you for that, Kevin. Kevin, well, look, that takes care of the pre-submitted questions. If I could just ask you if you would be so kind for both you and Adam to open up the Q&A tab. You'll see questions submitted by investors, so thank you so much for those that have submitted questions this morning. Could I ask you just to read out the questions, perhaps where it's from, and where appropriate, give a response, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Absolutely, thank you. So we have a question from Michael D. Thank you for the question. Can you expand on the visibility you have on future grant funding? And Adam will provide a little bit more detail on this, but we've had substantial support from grant funding, and as I mentioned earlier, it comes in sort of two elements. One is the support that we've had to bring the products through the product development process, and the other is the engagement on the type of grants that we can get in support of the build out of the gigafactory, which are both national and regional. So we've had on the latter, we've had continual engagement around the designs. It's not a one-shot process. You don't just submit, and it's more a collaborative process that you start to do your designs, you start to down select your site, and we're in constant engagement with the funding body as we move forwards. So Adam, did you want to expand on that at all?
No, I think, as you said, this is the latter one about funding for the proposed new gigafactory. That is, we've been in active dialogue. We have a number of sort of initial submissions to the organisation, and we'd hope to be announcing something next calendar year. Sorry. With regards to grant funding for development work, we continue to engage with the local fund providers, and they continue to provide programs and competitions which we can submit to. We have a team, and I think also we've reported about 68 engagements. A significant number of those are related to grant funded projects and opportunities going forward. So we have a degree of confidence that we'll continue to get grant funding for our development programs.
Thank you, Adam. So question from Nick J. Thank you for the question. What do you see as the biggest challenge to commercialising your portfolio of battery products? I think there are sort of stages of challenges that come through. Firstly, there are the technological challenges. We have moved past most of those, and we're now really in the phase where we're looking at scaling them up to production rates which will meet the market opportunity. So those are the stages we're in now, and of course they do have challenges where we have to make sure that we can generate the products at the right pace with the right yield, but that work is going very well. And then I guess the next step would be to get the engagements, and different industries engage in different ways. So energy storage, once we've gone through the certification of the product, or the initial certification, which we're looking to do later this year for the first releases, then they will really be able to be sold into those sort of energy storage markets. Automotive takes a slightly different approach, where there's some more specialized certification that happens as we provide initial products before we'd open up the larger supply contracts. So it's really the next step of those engagements that we are focused on delivering against. Okay, Tony A, thank you for the question. What are your expectations around the development of the ferrite and sodium ion technology? Do you have a targeted date for commercial sale? So yes, we do. We have a release date which is in 2022, and obviously in the energy storage market, which is our first market that we believe sodium ion will be sold into, we're expecting to have contracts lining up against that release date. We already have a lot of engagements in taking that technology into various elements of the energy storage market, including residential, but also alongside renewable energy storage units. So yeah, next year we are expecting the product to be ready for release, and as I said, we would expect to start commercial sales at some point next calendar year. Adam F, thank you. Northros Ice Tech used to champion a reverse load benefits to logistics delivery from Thurso. empty lorries heading south. Do you see a similar benefit? Well, we're not looking at major scale production in Thurso. We have different sites where we're expecting to expand our production capability. So really, we'd be focused on more conventional logistics around larger conurbations, really. The way we would run the sort of million sales a year for the specialist market, I think would be of similar sorts of approaches. So yes, thank you for that. A question again from Adam F. How do you see the aviation market developing. Delirium has announced it is going with custom cells based on an Si silicon anode. Is this the likely direction of travel? Well, we have silicon anode technologies in the company as part of our energy cell. So yes, we do agree that that is the way forward. The aviation industry, it's got two real needs. One is the power it needs to get the vehicle into the air, and the other is the energy it needs to get range and duration of flight. The silicon anode cells typically are focused on energy enhancements, and what we've also been getting strong engagement on in the aerospace market is a high power cell, which is something that will be really needed to get the sort of takeoff powers that you see in aircraft. Question from Martin. I'll summarize it because it's quite long, but are we going to strengthen our social media for communication? And the answer to that is yes. We haven't, through the sort of product development, been typically using things like Twitter, but as we're now moving forwards, we will be looking to use the majority of our social media approaches to strengthen communications with stakeholders and shareholders. A question from Barry M. What differentiates your products with those of your competitors? Well, the three differentiated products are obviously different. We have a high power cell. What that does is put more power into as small a space as possible, whereas more conventional products, those of our competitors, typically are all about as much energy in that small space as possible. And just to put that into other terms, energy is really, as I mentioned just now, about range, and power is about that sort of transience, that acceleration. And both are required in vehicles, both aerospace and automotive. Tim F. Question on how much capex do you expect to fund with the Gigafactory? Why at this early stage wouldn't you prefer to partner with, why at this early stage wouldn't you prefer to partner with other Gigafactory developers in the UK? Well, the capex question I'll put to Adam in a sec, but let me just talk a little bit about the opportunity space that we see, and basically the opportunity in the UK from the government sources is that there's enough capacity, there's enough demand for 8 gigafactories, and so the opportunity is there really for us to follow that demand with supply, which obviously accelerates the revenue streams that the company holds, but also allows a slightly more profitable approach than just licensing the technology to a partner on a gigafactory. I think the other thing that slightly differentiates us is we already have a manufacturing capability. So really what we're doing is expanding our capacity rather than designing a new capacity from scratch. So Adam, I don't know if you want to add anything about the sort of funding approaches on the Gigafactory.
I think there's probably 2 elements to that. Thank you, Kevin. First, in terms of sort of how much capex do you expect for the Gigafactory, I think if we were initially looking at a 2 gigawatt hour per annum factory, and that is in terms of capex somewhere between 200 to 250 million in total. In terms of how we would fund that, there are 3 elements to that. One, which we touched on before, relates to grant funding and support from the government, both local and national, to help finance that. Secondly, we'd look at debt funding of that either through an asset financing or through potentially securitization of from orders from customers. And thirdly, obviously, would look at an equity element, which was part of the plans we laid out in the emission document. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Adam. Kevin, I think you've pretty much taken every question that's come from investors. So, unless any further questions come through, Kevin, what I would propose is that I just ask you for a few closing comments just to wrap up with. I know investor feedback is important to you guys. We will shortly redirect investors to provide you with feedback. And as I say, if any further questions do come in the meantime, we'll present these to you after the event.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, still a very exciting space. The opportunity for bringing cells to market is large, and we've got our particular role to playing that alongside perhaps more conventional cells, our differentiated cells. We're getting very strong engagement, and we're looking forward to bringing those products to market and capitalizing on those opportunities as we go forwards. So thank you very much for your time. It's appreciated.
Kevin, Adam, thank you very much again for updating investors this morning. Can I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of AMTE Power, I'd like to thank you very much for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session. Good morning to you all.